Our next lesson in history is called Other Campaigns. Our goal is to list the results of the Western and Southern campaign battles of the Revolutionary War. Let's look at our vocabulary words. Have you ever heard the word annihilate? Do you know what annihilate means? If you annihilate something, that means you completely destroy it. You wipe it out of existence. What about manipulate? Okay, manipulate means to manage cleverly. Okay, so let's go ahead and skip a space in our notes and write today's date. And today we're talking about other campaigns. Okay. Well, the Continental Army began an amazing transformation at Valley Forge in February 1778. With the help of European military leaders, the Continental Army became an effective fighting force, leading to the victory at Saratoga. After Saratoga, the British began to shift their military operations to the west and the south. So let's talk about some campaigns. Let's talk about Monmouth. Monmouth. The British Army at Philadelphia finally took to the field in June of 1778 under a new commander, General Clinton. Okay, so General Clinton, remember he's British. And we're in Philadelphia. Okay. The British were concerned about the French entering the war and decided they needed to hold New York City. Washington attacked the army near Monmouth Courthouse in New Jersey as it marched towards New York. Okay. So the British, since the French were going to enter the war, they decided they need New York City. They decided to take New York City. So they're headed towards New York City. Well, Washington, I think you know that he's an American, but just in case, he decided that Washington attacked the army near Monmouth Courthouse as it marched toward New York City. Washington attacked at Monmouth. And just so you know, Monmouth is in New Jersey. The battle was indecisive, but the Americans held their ground and many of the Hessian mercenaries deserted. The British Army withdrew to New York. Okay. British withdrew to New York, except for Yorktown. Washington spent the remainder of the Revolutionary War keeping the British Army tied up around New York without fighting any major battles. Okay? So, Washington kept the British near New York for the rest of the war. Okay, So we're talking about Monmouth. We said that General Clinton, he's British, in Philadelphia, he decided to take New York City. Well, Washington, remember, he's an American, he attacked the British at Monmouth, New Jersey. The British withdrew to New York. Washington kept the British near New York for the rest of the war. Okay. Now, what were the Indians doing during all this? You think of all this fighting, well, where were the Indians? So let's talk about the Indians. Indian involvements. The Iroquois Indians of New York were allies of the British. Ooh, okay. So the Iroquois, I-R-O-Q-U-O-I-S. So the Iroquois Indians were British allies. During 77 and 78, they waged a bloody war of attack and murder against the relatively undefended pioneers on the western frontier of New York and Philadelphia. Okay. So they started attacking the pioneers. Started attacking, that means they weren't attacking the soldiers. They were attacking the families. Pioneers. On the western frontier in New York and Pennsylvania. Washington responded by sending an army to attack Iroquois villages. The destruction of their homes and crops caused many of the Indians to starve. Okay, so once they started attacking the people, Washington attacked the Iroquois. Okay, so let's talk about diplomatic campaigns. Diplomatic campaigns. The American Congress had wisely sent Benjamin Franklin to Paris as ambassador early in the war to persuade the French government to aid the colonies. Okay. So they sent Benjamin Franklin to Paris as an American ambassador. B-A-S-S-A-D-O-R. A-D-O-R. Okay. Franklin quickly became the darling of the frivolous French court. The French aristocracy was taken by current theories about the superiority of the natural man. Franklin obligingly played the part of the noble rustic, much to the delight of the high-born women. The more practical members of the French government saw an opportunity to cut the power of the British Empire in the Western Hemisphere and get revenge for the recent French losses in North America. And that basically means that he was able to persuade the French to help the Americans. So the French government secretly supplied the colonies with war material from the earliest days of the war. The French government, supplied Americans with war materials. After the stunning victory at Saratoga, the French felt they could safely support the American cause publicly. The French sent a navy to break the British blockade of colonial trade and threaten British colonies in the West Indies. The French also sent men and supplies that eventually doubled the size of the colonial army. The Spanish and the Dutch, also looking for revenge, joined the French. The entire nature of the war changed as Britain suddenly found itself fighting a world war instead of a colonial rebellion. Okay. Secret. I'm going to put the word secretly. Okay, helped publicly after Saratoga. Okay. So we talked about Indian involvement. We said the Iroquois Indians were British allies. The Iroquois started attacking the pioneers, so Washington attacked the Iroquois. Diplomatic campaigns. Benjamin Franklin was sent to Paris as an American ambassador. The French supplied America with war materials secretly, and the French helped publicly after we won the Battle of Saratoga. Okay. And Spanish and Dutch also started helping the Americans. Okay. Western and Southern campaigns. Let's talk about the Western campaign. Western campaign. Most of the battles in the West were fought against the Indians, who were encouraged by the British to make raids on American settlements. Okay, so most were against the Indians. Most were against the Indians. Okay. Control of this region would enable the Patriots to concentrate on the eastern and southern regions. Well, in 1778, George Rogers Clark and a small band of frontiersmen overcame the British at Kaskaskia, Cahokia, and Vincennes, the three major British forts in the west guarding the Mississippi tributaries. So in 1778, this is George Rogers Clark. George Rogers Clark. He overcame the British. Let's see. These victories brought the West under American control. He overcame British. Okay, overcame British. At three major British forts guarding the Mississippi tributaries. Tributaries. Okay. So now the West is under American control. It brought the West under American control. Of course, we know the British isn't going to like that, so they're probably going to do something. We're talking about the Western campaigns. This has an S, by the way. Most of the Western campaigns were against the Indians. In 1778, George Rogers Clark, I forgot to put it, I'm sorry, he's an American. He overcame the British at 3 major British forts guarding the Mississippi tributaries, so this brought the West under American control. However, a British officer named Colonel Henry Hamilton recaptured Vincennes. His victory was short-lived as George Rogers Clark led his men through waist-deep swamps in the dead of winter to recapture the fort and bring the West under American control. The Americans had little trouble with the Indians and British in the West for the remainder of the war. Okay? Alright. So Colonel Hamilton recaptured Vincennes, but then Clark took it right back. Okay. So now let's talk about the Southern campaign. There is no S there, I was wrong. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Southern campaign. Well, the British captured Savannah in December of '78 and quickly took the rest of Georgia. Okay. 1778, the British took Savannah, captured Savannah, S-A-V-A-N-N-A-H, and the rest of Georgia. So it captured Savannah and I'm just going to put Georgia. In October '79, an attempt by a joint French-American force to drive them out failed. Buoyed by their success, the British invaded South Carolina in 1780. Okay, so in 1779, French and America tried to drive them out. Okay, failed to drive them out. So in 1780, the British invaded South Carolina. British invaded South Carolina. They encircled the city of Charleston and forced the defending army to surrender on May 12th. Invaded South Carolina. Surrendered on May 12th. The Americans lost nearly the entire Southern Army. Americans lost nearly the entire Southern Army. Okay, we're talking about the Southern Campaign. In 1778, the British captured Savannah and Georgia. In 1779, the French and American army failed to drive them out. In 1780, the British invaded South Carolina. Americans surrendered on May 12th. Americans lost nearly the entire Southern Army. Even then, bands of armed patriots attacked supply lines, British loyalists, and isolated troops throughout the colony, making the British occupation insecure. Congress acted quickly to assemble a new army to fight in the South. Okay, so now we're going to talk about General Gates. Okay, so General Gates, and he's an American, so we can get these guys straight. General Gates, he was the one that won at Saratoga. He assembled an army and he challenged the British commander, Lord Cornwallis, at Camden, South Carolina. Okay, he challenged Cornwallis at Camden, South Carolina. This is August of 1780. August 1780. It was a humiliating defeat for the Americans. Many of the inexperienced and ill-prepared troops fled without firing a shot. Gates and the remainder of his army retreated. Many Americans fled without a shot. Gates retreated. A blow from within the American ranks intensified the bleak outlook. The brilliant General Benedict Arnold, hero of Ticonderoga, Quebec, and campaigns of the northern New York. What do you think he did? What do you think Benedict Arnold did? I think you know. He became a traitor. Okay. I guess I didn't know he was a general. General Benedict Arnold. This is when he became a traitor. Turned traitor. He had suffered some setbacks in his military career and felt he was not being rewarded as his achievements merited. He was fond of high living and money. In September of 1780, Arnold offered to surrender to British his command, a key American fort at West Point, for a large sum of money and a commission in the British Army. Oh. Okay. September 1780. Arnold offered to surrender West Point. Offered to surrender West Point for money and a commission in the British Army. And commission in the British Army. Okay. General Gates, an American, on August 1780, challenged Cornwallis at Camden, South Carolina. Many Americans fled without a shot. Gates had to retreat. This is when General Benedict Arnold turned traitor. September 1780, Arnold offered to surrender West Point for money and a commission in the British Army. The man acting as a go-between was captured, and the plot was revealed before it could be completed. Okay. The go-between was captured. Go-between was captured. And Arnold fled to New York City and joined the British Army as a general. Arnold joined the British Army as a general in New York. Was it New York? Yeah, okay. That's what I thought I said, but no. In New York City. He fought the remainder of the Revolution as a British officer and lived the rest of his life as a British subject. Okay. His treachery was a painful blow to the Americans, and to this day, his name is used as a synonym for traitor. An unusual monument to Benedict Arnold was erected. Because he was wounded in the same leg as at the battles of Quebec and Saratoga, the monument is a statue of his leg, and the only loyal part of Benedict Arnold. That's funny. After his victory at Camden, the overconfident Cornwallis decided to attack North Carolina before South Carolina was fully secure. Groups of backwoodsmen turned out to fight the British advance. Under the command of John Sevier, they engaged the enemy at Kings Mountain, South Carolina, in October of 1780. There they surprised 1,200 British troops under the command of Colonel Patrick Ferguson. It was one of the bloodiest battles of the war because the Patriots totally annihilated the British regiment. Cornwallis retreated. Okay, so Cornwallis, General Cornwallis, remember, he's British. He decided to attack North Carolina. Decided to attack North Carolina. Okay. Okay. John Sevier, S-E-V-I-E-R. Okay, he's an American. Just so you can get this straight. They engaged the enemy at Kings Mountain. Kings Mountain. Now this is in South Carolina. Now Cornwallis, he decided to attack North Carolina. So he's moving all his troops up here. So John Sevier, he attacked at Kings Mountain, South Carolina in October. This is October 1780. Well, they surprised the 1,200 British troops. Colonel Patrick Ferguson. Okay, he's British. He's the one at Kings Mountain, South Carolina. He had 1,200 troops. They were surprised. And they said this was one of the bloodiest battles of the war. One of the bloodiest battles. Because we annihilated them. And it says Cornwallis retreated. So we said that the go-between was captured. Arnold joined the British Army as a general in New York City. General Cornwallis, remember he's British, he decided to attack North Carolina. John Sevier, an American, he attacked the British at Kings Mountain, South Carolina in October of 1780. Colonel Ferguson, he's British, 1,200 men. He was surprised. It was one of the bloodiest battles of the war. And Cornwallis retreated. Nathanael Greene was chosen to replace Gates in the South. Greene and Daniel Morgan manipulated Cornwallis northward, separating him from his base in Charleston. Their successful strategy was to exhaust Cornwallis by getting him to chase them all over the countryside, fighting small, inconclusive battles. When the colonists did stop to fight, they chose the place and made good use of the opportunity. Under Morgan's command, the Americans won an important victory at Cowpens, South Carolina, in January of 1781. They killed or captured most of the entire force Cornwallis had sent against them. Okay. So, General Greene he's replacing Gates. Replaced Gates. Okay. Now remember, they're Americans. Okay? Greene and Morgan they got Cornwallis to chase them and wear him out. Okay, wear Cornwallis out. Okay, Cowpens, South Carolina. This is January of 1781. They killed or captured almost the entire force Cornwallis had sent against them. So we're going to say they defeated Cornwallis. Defeated Cornwallis. I guess I should say most of Cornwallis's men. So Cornwallis, he responded to the defeat by chasing the Americans further. Cornwallis chased Americans. The two sides fought another major battle at Guilford Courthouse, North Carolina. Guilford Courthouse, North Carolina. And this is in May of 1781. Technically, the British won because they drove General Greene from the battlefield. However, the victory was costly, and the British were forced to retreat back to South Carolina. Greene kept the Carolinas too hot for Cornwallis to handle safely. But neither could Greene drive the British out. Okay. Okay, so we said that General Greene replaced Gates. Remember, they're Americans. Greene and Morgan got Cornwallis to chase them and wear them out. Cornwallis out. Cowpen, South Carolina, January 1781. They defeated most of Cornwallis's men. Cornwallis chased the Americans. They fought again at Guilford Courthouse, North Carolina in May of 1781. And this were the results of that battle. They drove General Greene from the battlefield. Okay, results. They drove Greene. Remember, Greene's an American. From the battlefield. The British retreated back to South Carolina. Retreated to South Carolina. Greene kept Carolinas too hot for Cornwallis to handle safely, but Greene couldn't drive the British out. Okay. Alright. I want you to go ahead and study your notes. Go ahead and study this lesson and go ahead and answer the questions.